Good evening and welcome to Follow Everton. I'm Ryan and I've got Chris with me today, and this is the match preview for Chelsea versus Everton. And we will have John also joining us shortly in the stream. Chris, how are you doing?
I am good, my friend. Not too bad. A couple of results went our way yesterday. It's been a good week for football thus far. And honestly, a little afraid that Everton might ruin my week. But we're going to be optimistic here today, right?
Of course, I've removed the Mr. Negative banner from my from my name. We're going to be positive coming into this game, not only because Everton won, as you say, against Brentford last Saturday, but because two results went our way last night. I didn't actually know there was Premier League games on until I was watching the Liverpool match, and I got a text message to say that Brentford were winning. Two really good results, Chris. Brentford winning and Brighton winning, which effectively meant, of course, the reality, Southampton lost and Crystal Palace lost, which is fantastic for us.
Right. Not the most unexpected results. I guess you could say Southampton were at home, but Brentford certainly looked the part. Southampton came with quite a charge in the second half, though. Palace looked as lost as ever. But as I said yesterday, they did get 3 shots on target, which is more than they've had in the last 3.5 matches where they had 0. So if anything, I guess Palace fans can take that away, but no, they cannot score goals. They're absolutely right in the thick of it. And it's good to see teams catching up on games, but not points.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Just welcome to everyone in the comments, of course. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. You can turn the notifications on as well if you're already a member. I'm about to bring in John in a moment, and I'd just like to give a quick shout out to everyone in the comments. We've got Kevin, Eugene, Emma, Mr. Blue Skies, Mark, Dave Weston, Peter, Paul, we've got Kevin. I've got loads of people in the comments, and the Blues, and Robbie Pritchard, and Nemo. Thank you so much for coming on for this match preview. We're here for the next 45 minutes. I've got John coming in to the stream now, so I'm just going to bring in John.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hey, mate.
Hi John, turn your mic down just slightly for me.
No problem. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Does that sound clear enough to you, Chris? Is that okay with you, Chris?
Yeah, all good. Yep.
There's a balance between the two. John, thanks for coming on for this match preview. You've not met Chris before, but Chris is the latest pundit over in the States. So
pundit being used very loosely there, but I appreciate that.
Well, I've seen you on the streams, and you look like a very good character, and you know what you're talking about. So pleasure to have you on.
Thanks very much. Nice to meet you, man.
But we do actually want someone who doesn't know what they're talking about to come and join the show, because
that's what we have Jan for.
I think we need someone on here who's going to chat a load of bollocks. I mean, I am renowned for it, according to some people on here, but I want a complete character. So if you're interested in being the village idiot, then do not apply, because I think we've got a good balance now. Chris and John, thanks for joining. As we say, we just touched upon those two results. It does lift your mood, doesn't it, John, when you've seen other teams around you slip? And Crystal Palace, they could get dragged into this now, this relegation battle, where I think maybe a few, they've gone a little bit overlooked. But actually, in the background, a few of us have been thinking, actually, Crystal Palace, they're not winning games. They don't score goals. They're lost again. We're 2 points behind them. And then Southampton, although they had some sort of mini resurgence, ended up losing. So it does fill you with a little bit of confidence that Everton can actually get out of this mess, purely because there's so many teams that aren't even that good.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the mood being lifted, it's such a pleasure to see Everton at the end of a weekend and us not to be in the bottom 3 or the drop zone. Obviously, last week when Bournemouth beat Liverpool, a bit of a shock result. We really need games like that to go our way. And the one time that we would want the Red Shite to win, they go and end up losing. But it's as long as we focus on winning our own games, and we really push forward. But I do see Palace dropping in. Obviously, they lost yesterday, and it does pull them into it, because I think we're 2 points behind them now with the same amount of games played. So if we can, obviously our next 3 fixtures are a big challenge, but if the fans get behind them, we play the game that we're now looking more forward to, and actually starting to get a few results, then it's a very, very close season at the moment, and any 3 teams could be the ones to go down.
As John says, Chris, any teams could go down. Everton, we're hoping, is one that's going to be well safe by the time perhaps we get to, say, the last 2 games of the season, which are Wolves and Bournemouth. But between now and then, we play a lot of the top 10 sides, and we've proven we can beat one in Brentford. They're no mugs. Chelsea, though, we don't have a good record at the Bridge. I actually can personally remember being at Stamford Bridge for a last-minute winner, John Terry from a corner a few years ago, which wasn't very pleasant, I can assure you. I think we were winning or we were holding out for a draw. We ended up conceding in the last minute. Everton will go there full of confidence off the back of that Brentford game, but Chelsea, Chris, have come on a little bit of a mini resurgence with 3 wins in 3, I believe.
Yeah, I had to in all comps. Yeah, 2 in the league. I had to look this one up a few weeks ago to make sure my friend wasn't lying to me, because he told me Chelsea had only won 2 in 15 league matches. I couldn't believe that that's Chelsea Football Club relegation form. Obviously, they have turned it around a bit, but all you have to do is look to last season. We played a young team at the Bridge. We got a point, 1-1. I can remember it very vividly, mainly because it was on my birthday and is my favorite away match to this day thus far. But the point being, yes, the squad's turned over a little bit from them, but we have lads that have been there before that know that they can go into a hostile environment and get a point. You know, our last away match, you could arguably say it was the strongest under Dyche. It was the draw against Forest. And the only reason I bring that up, I know we're still a little bit upset about that, is because we didn't get run off the pitch, right? And so I think this squad has proved, not just against Brentford, against Arsenal as well, that we can compete with the top half. I'm not worried about our schedule coming up. This match this weekend, a little bit worried about that one, but just for the rest of the season's sake, not as worried. Just kind of hoping they turn up and don't concede early this weekend, quite frankly, because I want them to get the feel of the game and be able to push forward and not just get, you know, kind of lost in their positions, if you like.
I've watched some of Chelsea's games, and actually they're not that good. And that is even these last 3 games where they scraped a win against Leeds. So I don't think we should go there with something to fear. Obviously, they've made a lot of recruitment, and I think that's going to take a lot of time. But there was talk only a few games ago of Graham Potter actually being sacked off the back of a very poor start. When I look at Stamford Bridge, though, as a whole, our record there isn't great. And I don't really like the 5:30 kickoff. I think the last time we did that, we got hammered 5-0. I believe it was Boxing Day a few years ago, and it was a 5:30 on a Saturday night. So I would much rather prefer to play this as a Sunday at 12 o'clock under a subdued atmosphere and go there and nick a point, or go and nick a 1-0 win, Sean Dyche style. But I think it's going to be a very difficult game. We'll just take a look at Chelsea's last results, if that's okay, before we move on to the Sean Dyche press conference. And Chelsea were struggling just before the World Cup. They'd lost to Newcastle and Aston Villa, and they come back after the World Cup and beat Bournemouth, but drew away at Forest, lost to Man City, lost to Fulham, narrowly beat a poor Crystal Palace team, drew at Liverpool, and then in these recent games, there was a 1-1 draw at West Ham. I do think they should have got a penalty late on for a handball on West Ham, but that's the Everton bias, wanting West Ham to lose. They lost to Southampton at home, which shows they are beatable, and the crap sides can beat them. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail.
By the way, it's also just having eyes and watching a guy make a save, you know, Jared Bowen make a save in the box. That's all it is. No Everton bias there. He blatantly saves it with his hand. But go on.
Yeah, it was a clear handball. They lost to Spurs as well, and then they narrowly beat Leeds United with a goal from a set piece, a corner. I did watch that game. And then they just beat Leicester City 3-1, but that could have gone either way, I think, in the balance. So there's some mixed results, but they're coming back into it. But I really don't think we should go there with the attitude of, oh, we're going to get battered. They're not, you know, competing for the title or the top 4. They are where they are. They're 10th in the league. They're actually lower than Brentford. So I think we should go there. And if we can forget the name and focus on the game and what's actually had them on that little bit of a bad run before and target that, then we can do okay. And that's down to Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche today did a press conference and gave us the team news. Chris, would you like to run us through the available players, or would it be easier to say who isn't available?
Well, I already know where you're going with this, because I know you're going to want to answer questions about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Not in training today. I think I said this a few days ago. I didn't expect him to be in the squad against Chelsea. I thought they were going to wait until afterwards, get him on against Spurs, but we'll visit that when the time comes. Dominic Calvert-Lewin not training though. I believe he said Patterson was fit. Garner's on the bench, or as Sean Dyche said, in and around the bench, which whatever that means. So I expect to see kind of Garner in the same spot. Not sure if he's going to get some minutes this weekend or not. Mykolenko should be back from illness. They just wanted to give him an extra few days. But other than that, from what I can see, we have a fully fit squad, other than, you know, the normal ones that are out for a long time.
Yeah. John, the Calvert-Lewin thing is frustrating, and we're not going to harp on about it, but he was back in training the end of last week ahead of the Brentford match. We all assumed that with another week's training and potentially 10 days, we'd at least see him on the bench. Now, For me, Chelsea, possibly we wouldn't even need him in this sort of game because we're not really going to have a lot of the ball, I would imagine. We're probably going to play on the counter, in which case Damari Gray offers that sort of mobility up top. But that being said, you want the option there, and it is becoming a bit of a drain that now he's got another niggle, the latest in what's suspected to be a long line of niggles.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been very frustrating to see. Obviously, he gets injured, he comes back, maybe plays half a game, one game, and then he picks up another injury. He seems to be extremely injury prone. And I feel like it's getting to a point where we've actually got to find a replacement for him because he was on good form and firing for us. But since that good period where the people were talking about a potential call-up for him, he's been either injured or not performing at all. And we can't rely on a player that's just going to be coming back in for half or 1.5 games here and there. And we need a player that's on good striking form to be able to replace him. So I feel like we need to move away from the Calvert-Lewin talk because he's just not a reliable player.
I think that's what they've done in a way with Yerry Mina. I think rather than bringing him in and he plays 20 minutes and gets subbed off, or bringing him in for a match and he does okay and then gets injured, I think we can build a little bit more momentum and consistency and a way of playing by keeping him out the team. He's leaving at the end of the season anyway, and cementing Michael Keane, Connor Cody, or one of the plethora of options we've got at centre back. And I think it's the same now with Calvert-Lewin, where he possibly could have cobbled together at some sort of minutes over this period, but it's quite clear he's never been fit enough to build any consistency. So they kept him out. The annoying thing for me is he's still got himself injured just training. So there's clearly something not right, maybe a little bit more into it. And I really don't want to speculate about some of the rumors we've heard because I don't think it is appropriate to do so. But Chris, on more news, we've shown that we can get points without Calvert-Lewin. So we have to go there and not be drawn into that again and focus on the players we've got. And on that note, we've got Nathan Patterson back available in the squad. You've got James Garner also available, and you'd hope he'd be raring to go. So really the only two players are DCL and Townsend that are injured. You've got a lot of options there to pick from. Let's talk about some of the other things Sean Dyche talked about in the press conference, and I have made some notes. Let's have a look. Where was I here? He was asked about Connor Cody first and foremost, Chris. He said there's no decision on Connor Cody at the moment, but there's fine margins between the players who are starting and not. What do you make of that?
Well, he said, he's a consummate professional. He'd always heard it and basically found out when he actually got to meet him. And that's nothing but the truth. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, we all saw kind of Cody have a few lapses in judgment, we'll call them. And honestly, Michael Keane hasn't performed extremely poorly. I thought the experiment wasn't exactly working, but he kind of redeemed himself against Brentford. He's looked the part. He's saying the right things. He's doing the right things in training. If you have a more than capable center half, you put him in, I hate to use the term ride the momentum or ride the hot guy, but at this point, you basically just have to put the players on the pitch that are the most fit and that are not making mistakes. We all know Dyche's history with Michael Keane as well, so I'm sure that factored into it just a bit. Michael Keane's playing fine from the sounds of it, from players and even seeing videos of Connor Cody as well. Connor Cody's ready when he needs to be. It certainly doesn't hurt to have Connor Cody coming off the bench, especially given the options that we've had in recent seasons. So I'm kind of okay with that, and we just kind of hope Connor Cody keeps his head. As far as his permanent deal, though, I kind of agree in the sense that we can't worry about that now. We'll revisit that this summer.
I personally am not ruling out a permanent deal for him. But at the moment, I don't see much difference between a Michael Keane that's fit and a Connor Cody that's fit, apart from the more vocal. And I like the personality. I like the personality of them both, but Connor Cody's clearly, he's such a cool guy. I mean, I saw the video on the Everton site before with the young lad that they had.
That was fantastic, wasn't it?
Amazing, phenomenal. And you could see the Connor Cody was in hysterics at some of the stuff and the little bit of banter, but you've got to do the football on the pitch. And John, you feel it was inevitable maybe that Michael Keane was always going to come into the team under Sean Dyche?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't played him previously. He's had a very rough time with us. There were a lot of simple errors that he made, and it cost us a lot of games in previous seasons. But obviously, times has changed, and if they're playing under a different system, it is an interesting combo to try and bring them in. I would say Tarkowski, obviously, you're keeping in, and then it's whoever plays with him. But I feel like under previous seasons, it was always this mix match of centre backs, and we never had a solid two. And I feel like to build the chemistry and build the team together, you need to have these links and you need to know each other's skills. And if you keep doing what we did last time and you bring in different centre backs each time and have different pairings, you sort of lose that chemistry and connection between them. So you need to, yes, bring in different players here and there, but also try and build this link up. Otherwise, we're going to struggle.
That was the problem last season for me, in terms of we probably had a lot better attacking options on the whole, but we didn't have a defensive midfielder or two. We didn't have good central defenders, and I think we've gone out and actually brought reliable defenders in. Tarkowski, look, they're not 10 out of 10 defenders, but you're going to play. They're going to be fit and ready for you. Whereas I think we had players who were injury prone and had no consistency. So I think we're in a better place. It's just a pity we couldn't have stayed and held on to a couple more of those forwards from last season, because I think we wouldn't be anywhere near a relegation battle based on the evidence I've seen. Mr. Blue Skies does mention Branthwaite, so I think that'll come into the thinking of the summer decision whether we sign Conor Cody or not. He did say, though, Sean Dyche, about Dele Alli. The indication is that he's not going to be playing at Besiktas anymore. Going to spend most of the time on the bench or not in the squad. So they're going to have a chat during the international break about that. He also went on to say, he did talk about the fine margins between the team selection and that Calvert-Lewin had felt something, which amused me when trying to justify why he's gone from being fully training with the squad to not involved in the slightest. He said that Everton did well against Forest and should have won, arguably. Arsenal was a bad night for them all, but there's signs that the mentality in these away fixtures are improving. We need to master the details. Chris, what do you make of what he said in terms of the mentality? Do you think there was some small improvements against Nottingham Forest, or do you think it actually showed a bit of mental weakness that we actually did crumble the lead twice?
No, I mean, if anything, yeah, of course, in the last 15, 20 minutes, whatever the case, when everybody was tired on the bed, that of course we crumbled a bit, but no, the way the team I saw against Forest was much different than I saw really in previous weeks, much less the previous game against Arsenal, but they absolutely looked up for it. It was one of the better away performances I've seen in a long time. I think the mentality is there. Sean Dyche casually left out the fact that, yes, we should have won at Forest had I made a substitution, but he didn't want to really go there, which is totally understandable. But the mentality has changed. I mean, like I said, I don't want to go back and watch the latter games under Frank Lampard, but if you really want to go see how listless and lackluster and just lethargic and just honestly, just the team didn't care. I hate to say that. I hate to say they gave up. Frank lost the team. The team really just, you could tell that they weren't there against Wolves, against Southampton, against West Ham, name a game, right? It is a completely different squad right now.
Everyone call that going through the motions, Chris.
Fair enough. I was drawing a blank here, but that's absolutely right. And that's absolutely what it was. And like I said, whether it's players not wanting to travel, whether it's players not wanting to turn up, whether it's players getting kicked out of the dressing room, told to train away, whatever the case was, it's not the same Everton as it was 3-4 months ago. And that's a good thing for us.
I'm confident that over the course of a season, Sean Dyche with these players would probably have us around 12th to 14th in the league. But I think he has been shortchanged, certainly with the situation with the strikers and the wingers and the attacking midfielders that the club have been stripped of. So I'm really interested to see how next season goes. But this season, we've got to just find a way. And one player that's going to be really important to helping us find that way is Dwight McNeil, who's really improved because his game has been simplified. Sean Dyche said his instructions are clear. He asked him to relax his shoulders because he's a good player. The goal against Brentford was a beautiful thing, John, but you want to see more of that. You want to see him getting into the box on the end of the crosses that may be coming from the right side. And also just showing that willingness to shoot from anywhere, because I think he's possibly the only one in that sort of front six quadrant who can actually strike a ball.
Yeah, too many times have we had the ball on the edge of the box and everyone is trying to pass the ball around 1-2, try and get literally on the goal line before they actually have faith in themselves to have a shot. And I think more often than not, we actually just need to put your foot through the ball, because you never know where the ball is going to land if the keeper pushes it away or it takes a deflection, or again, if you have a good shot and it goes in. But if we actually take our chances, I'd much rather see that than just passing the ball around and trying to win something, because more often than not, we end up losing the ball or it just comes to nothing. So I'm very happy that he took that shot, and it was a great shot as well. And again, as you say, with the simple instructions, it actually gives him a purpose and he knows what he's doing. Because before, again, when we didn't really have a striker, we didn't know the roles. It was very lackluster. No one knew what they were doing. Whereas if they actually have a clear instruction, then we can get the ball moving into the areas that we need to, and then develop and score goals as we did.
Chris, another player though that hasn't probably done so well in these recent weeks is Amadou Onana, who a few fans have suspected is carrying an injury, and has wasted quite a lot of chances and doesn't quite fit maybe where Doucouré and Garner have done. And whilst there's certainly a lot more to come from him in the coming weeks, months, and hopefully seasons ahead, and I'm not in any means, before I get slaughtered again, saying he's a bad player, just saying I don't think we've quite utilised him or to his best of his abilities, or he's found a home. Is his place vulnerable, first and foremost, to James Garner? And secondly, I'd just like to clarify, he's not injured. Sean Dyche actually laughed when he was asked about the injury.
Well, I want to touch on that because he gave a little chuckle, but he also had this weird sort of reaction like, oh, really? Like it was almost like he kind of knew something but didn't want to say it. And maybe I'm looking too much into that, but he did say,
yeah, I felt it was like, no, he's just playing shit. Basically, without him saying it, that's how I felt he was taking it. Oh, no, there's no injury. He's just shit. Basically,
I hope that is the case, because that's at least something that we can, hopefully improve quicker than an injury. Whatever the case is, no, he hasn't been himself the last 3 or 4 matches, whatever it was, since the Villa match when he got the early yellow. He hasn't, especially in that match, been able to tackle as well, which is a lot of what he offered. Not much from a creative standpoint. He has had a couple of headers in the box that have gone wide or whatever. It was the couldn't get his boot over the ball against Brentford, whatever it was. Either way, he's not been able to be himself. And we're really looking for him to provide some creativity. I don't want to say his position's in jeopardy, especially to someone like a James Garner, because Onana really at this point, I think in our starting 11 has to be present. He does provide kind of a presence on the pitch, whether it's I hate to use a term intimidating factor, because it's not that. I just really think him in the midfield, he gels well with Doucouré, gels well with Ghana. We're looking for more from him, yes, and we're just hoping it's a slump rather than a serious injury.
Just on that as well, quickly, I think Onana, he does provide that presence or dominance in certain areas, and he has that ability to control the midfield. I think, again, that's what we've been lacking in the past. Too many second balls or loose balls we just lose possession to, and then we're on the back foot. Whereas I feel like he can use his dominance and his strength, because I feel like we haven't got much strength. We might have a bit more pace or on the wings, like to be able to do that, but we need that dominance and that strength to control the game. Some of his tackles.
Does Davis not offer that dominance, John?
I mean, if you compare the structure of Onana and Davies, they're very slightly different.
And why? Can you describe?
Well, you have one bulky, godlike man physique.
I knew you'd start chatting.
Yeah, but enough about Tom Davis. What about Onana?
Yeah, exactly. But he really provides that strength that we need, and some of his tackles are sublime. The way he goes in, and some other players would be able to go in like that, but they wouldn't win the ball at all, and they would take the man out. But he's right there. So
his tackling is superb, and that's why I've clamoured for him to be a number 6. But in the number 8, I think he just needs a goal or two, doesn't he, really, to get himself going? And as Robbie Pritchard says, once he gets a goal or two, he'll be buzzing and he'll be full of confidence. Maybe there is a lack of identity and confidence there, but there's clearly talent. I think there's so much more to see from him. I don't want to get drawn on that too much, but all I want to say is I think he's a player that's such a high ceiling. He's probably the player with the highest ceiling, not literally, well, probably literally as well, but he's probably got the highest potential to reach. The sky is the limit with him, and you feel like if he could really get himself going, he could be the difference in Everton, really dominating and winning games comfortably to just about doing the business.
Let's also not forget he's 21 years old. He's still a kid, and
age is just a number.
Well, that
sounds an excuse for
that all sounds great, but I really think a 21-year-old mentality is much different than someone who's been in the league for a few years, 26, 27, whatever the case. So, point being, if a player like that, a young player, gets to the slump or starts to make one mistake, sometimes they make 4 or 5 because they need to get their head right. That's my thoughts on that.
James Garner,
Robbie Pritchard's comment.
Yeah, very funny. James Garner's a bit of a beast, though, isn't he, John? Would you like to describe him?
Yeah, another young player. Bring him in. I wouldn't say he's. I haven't seen too much of him, but Um,
I'm pulling your leg, John. No one's seen anything. Just loving the
put me on the spot
description.
now. I'm like, what do I say?
No, I'm messing. We're all about the banter here.
Panic
Let's
over.
look at the Chelsea. Chelsea like to play a 3-4-3 as they do. They've been playing that style for years. The manager Graham Potter did very well at Brighton. Subsequently, Brighton have improved since he's gone. Make of that what you will. But they play with Felix. Sorry, he's not a cat food. Mudryk, Kai Havertz, who was a player that I didn't really understand, but now he's doing all right. He scored against Leeds. He scored against Leicester. Ben Chilwell is still playing. I'm surprised he's not been shipped off because they just have a high turnover of players.
He got called up to the England squad, didn't he, today?
Not sure. Don't really care. The four in midfield: Chilwell, Kovacic, Enzo Fernandez, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Interestingly enough, he's one that just survives. They spend 700-800 million on players, and he's still there. He's still getting picked. So good on him. But it was just a weird team against Leicester. I mean, they had Mark Cucurella, Koulibaly, and Fofana as a back three with Chilwell, Kovacic, Fernandez, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek as the four in midfield. It's a bit of an odd team. They got the result. They played with a lot of fluid football against Leicester, but that's because Leicester open up nicely. Everton aren't going to open up the same way. They're going to go there, you think, and try and play this very aggressive form of football, which is quite compact, and try and wait maybe for Chelsea to make some mistakes, which they do tend to do. Chris, can I get your team selection, please?
Oh, that is on the spot. Okay, well, just off the top of the head, I don't think it's going to be much different because Sean Dyche is one of those that doesn't like to mess with success, and there's something to be said about that. So I think it's going to probably be the same 4-5-1 that we saw, possibly with Nathan Patterson and for Seamus Coleman, depending on how that goes, unless he really just wants to bring him in, on 60, 65 minutes or whatever the case. That wouldn't surprise me. But other than that, I expect to still see Ben Godfrey on the left, given what we've seen in the last especially we'll say match and a half. He was very effective on the attack in the first half against Brentford. Second half obviously started to open up a little bit, but he did say it was a tight decision between Godfrey and Mykolenko. So I would be interested to see what happens there, but it's going to still be Keane and Tarkowski in the middle. I still see Onana, Decore, Ghana right in the midfield with McNeil and Iwobi on the left and right wings respectively. And I don't see a scenario where he doesn't put Damari Gray up top, given what's been happening recently.
Honestly, I think it'll be the same exact team as against Brentford. John, have you got any potential changes that you could look to do for this game?
I would keep it the same as well. And as he mentioned, if it's going to be a close call between Godfrey and Mykolenko, in my own opinion, I'd much prefer to have Godfrey in the team, especially the way he's been playing recently. I think Mykolenko, when he first came, there was some spark, there's potential, but I feel like he's not quite what we're looking for, or hasn't quite fit in yet.
Could be up against his countrymen.
Yeah, Madrid, but I'd prefer Godfrey in the team. Obviously McNeil, Gray, I'd keep there, and Iwobi sort of like acting as a triangle. I'd keep the team pretty much exactly where it is. The problem is though that Chelsea have a lot of squad depth, probably the biggest depth in the league. They've got numerous players they could bring on. So I think we just have to keep it tight at the back, take our chances with the counter, really push forward when we have those chances and utilize them well. But we just need to stay switched on. When we come out, we need to be ready and focused. None of this bullshit where we're hanging around. Oh, the game started and we were 1-0 down in the first minute. We need to be on it from the get-go and be ready for it.
We're going to talk about tactics a little bit more. Sorry, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, would you personally drop Onana, or would you give him another go and then wait and see what happens after the international break?
Honestly, if I felt like we had a really good option from midfield that could score goals, a Sigurdsson or a James or something like that in there, who you could bring in as an 8 and who's going to contribute with a goal threat, I would be swapping him out. But also probably wouldn't in this game, maybe because we need to win a lot of the second balls in that midfield battle. So whereas at home, I'd be quite tempted to change it maybe. I think in this game, I think he just has to go with the same team, Chris.
I agree.
And I'm just looking at Chelsea's injuries. Thanks for asking me a question. Appreciate that. Just looking at Chelsea's injuries here. They've got Breuer, who Everton fought tooth and nail for all of last summer. He's out till July. Thiago Silva won't be available for this game. That's a big loss. And as Cesar Azpilicueta will also be unavailable, as will Raheem Sterling, who's a thorn in Everton's side for years. Mason Mount is touch and go, as is Edouard Mendy. and Reece James and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and N'Golo Kante. All 4 of them could be available.
You just named a starting 11 first.
I was about to say, I would.
That's unbelievable.
The whole team would walk into our team comfortably.
Yeah,
absolutely. And really, and half the Premier League squads for that matter, not just us. That is an amazing list of injuries, and still be able to field the starting 11 that they do.
Yeah, I mean,
with a good team,
still crazy.
Crazy.
Thanks for watching. Follow Everton. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. Also, everyone watching, I know there's over 30 people sat here. I know this isn't the best time to be doing a live stream with people only just coming back from work. But I know we get about 500 people watching these match previews on average. So if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button for me right now.
And tell a friend.
Button. Tell a friend. Yeah, as Chris Tarrant would say, phone a friend, let them know we exist. We welcomed Chris onto the show. As you can see, he's got a great setup here. And we've got one of our founding fathers, not Abraham, not Moses. It's Jonathan Roskin, all the way from North London here to help assess, analyze, scrutinize, complain, moan, and enjoy and revel in the Everton family. Okay, so the final little part of the show, I think, tactics. I mean, how are we going to get a result at Chelsea, Chris? What do we have to do? What do we not have to do? As John said, is not concede early, but is it quietening the crowd and then playing very direct?
Well, I really, it sounds so sad, and I say this often, but it's really just don't concede early, get a feel for the game. And that's not saying just sit back and let it come to you, try and attack just completely. You want to take a little bit of the attack to them so that you don't give them the impression that they can just walk all over you. But I went and watched the first game of the season. It seems like it was just years ago when we actually played Chelsea at Goodison Park. It was Frank Lampard's Everton versus Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea, and the only goal was scored by Jorginho, none of which are still on their current squads. So just to say, life comes at you a little bit fast. But in that match, Chelsea obviously had a lot of the possession, as you said. It was one of those where I don't want to say we played scared, but we definitely, Jordan Pickford shined in that game. I'll just say that. There were a lot of saves made, stupid penalty by Decore, and then Chelsea go one up and maybe a couple of threats. But for the most part, Chelsea kind of had their way. Decore error in the box.
Was it Decore pen?
No, Decore, I believe, made the tackle on Ben Chilwell, kind of a dumb challenge from behind in the box. And then Jorginho slots it.
Yeah, I remember that game well. We were a little bit toothless. And I think we played with Anthony Gordon up front and we tried to counterattack them. And it was a bit of a huff and puff. And Chelsea were a little bit huff and puff and didn't really do anything. They got a goal, a lucky pen, I believe. As you say, Jorginho scored. And it's just one of those annoying games, John, wasn't it? Where it probably should have been a 0-0, but
yeah, I don't think either team really deserved anything, and they just happened to get a penalty, which was a bit of a dodgy tackle. But I think we're a different team now. Obviously, under new management, players are actually willing to play for the show, which I think is one of the most important things, especially at a club like Everton. So I think we need to go in. Fans need to be. I will be there, which I'm extremely excited about. And I can promise to be the loudest one there. But we just need to get behind them from the get-go. I think we need to not treat this as just sit out for the draw and hopefully get a point, like fingers crossed. I think we need to get out, not sit too far back. We need to defend as a team. And when we push forward, I think we need to go hell for leather, sprint forward, try and get them on the counter when they're sleeping and they're not ready for it. Maybe nick a goal or two, see what happens. But I don't want us to just sit back for the entire game, have 11 men behind the ball, because no doubt we might... I've seen it too many times where we've switched off for a brief second and they get a goal. But I don't want us to be so negative, turn around, pass backwards. I actually want us to be creative and move forward. Yeah. I want us to control the midfield, try and get something out of it.
If it's 0-0 on 75 minutes, are you playing for the draw?
I would. Interesting. I would probably focus on defense, but again, always have that spark and see if we can push forward and nick a goal.
Okay.
I'll be honest right now, I'd take a draw against Chelsea away from home. A draw against Chelsea away from home is a good result in the context. The problem is we've got a lot of teams where you could say what we're playing coming up, not just now, but up until those last 2 games of the season, which we have to win, but hopefully won't need to win, is that Everton's... I can't remember what my point was, and I just kind of was leading up to a really good point. What was the question again?
Well, another, I believe it was playing for the draw in 75 minutes. But another thing to note is that,
but there's too many teams that we'd say we'd probably take a draw against. We have to win some games. We have to win another 4 or 5 games minimum.
As we said earlier on in the thing, it's literally half the table pretty much that are in the relegation battle. It could be anywhere from 20th all the way up to 12th with Palace. So I think as much as we want to say, oh yeah, it'd be great if Southampton lose, it'd be great if this, and obviously it does help, we actually do need to focus on getting points and win our games.
Because if we don't score goals, none of it matters. It really doesn't.
It really doesn't, because as we've seen, Bournemouth can beat Liverpool after beating Man United 7-0 to then go and lose to like one of the relegated
Liverpool
teams.
are shit.
Anything can happen. So we really need to focus on us. And
Liverpool are shit.
Yeah, they are. But we're here to talk about the Blues, the only team in Liverpool. It goes Everton, Tranmere, Liverpool. So we just need to focus on getting our points in.
Well, we scored 3 in the last 2 games. That I've got to be said. We should have had a lot more goals. These games, Everton do just try and dominate Chelsea in the midfield. Certainly at Goodison, we do okay. Historical record. I know people moan. A couple of people, why are you doing a historical record? It's a bit of fun.
Numbers don't lie. That's all.
Versus Chelsea, we've won 59 times, lost 75. I'd imagine a lot of them were in the early Premier League era, and we've drawn 55. I'm not going to go back to 1901. I'm going to stick with the results sort of in the last. There's a period, I'd say, between 97, not even 97, 95. Oh my God, 95 to 2009, where we won twice, and we played them every single season. You know, that's, oh my goodness, 12 years. Is that 12 years?
I wasn't even born for some of that.
In
13
some
years.
Universe, yeah.
13 years where we won twice. We just lost all the time. They were an enigma for us, and we lost in the FA Cup final. And then the penny dropped. We got a couple of wins, 3 and 5 after that. Three draws and 3 wins after that. We said no more Chelsea. And then it's been, you win one, you lose a few, you win a couple. But generally, they do have sort of like the 60-40 edge on us overall in the last sort of 8 years or so. The 1-0, we beat them 1-0 at Goodison last season. We beat them 1-0 at Goodison the season before. We beat them 3-1 the season before that and 2-0 the season before that, all at Goodison. But away from home, we always lose or draw. The last...
That's because I've never been there before. It's time to change.
A draw and a loss in 2020, in 2021. A loss in 2020 and a draw and another draw and many losses before that. So what can we do to stop them? This isn't the Chelsea of old. This is a new Chelsea, and I think they're vulnerable. We can get at them and cause them some real nasty problems and try and get that record turned over. It's there, as Mr. Blue Sky says, the record is there to be broken.
Well, it is. It's a matter of just turning up. I hate to sound so simplistic, and it's not even a tactical thing. We have to stand up and be counted. We have to prove that we're there to be taken seriously, and it's just that. You don't want to you can't just lay down just because, like you said, you have to remember that it's just a game. Don't remember the name. That's what it is. I mean, Chelsea are 10th in the league for a reason. We're where we are for a reason, plain and simple. They weren't on good form for the longest time. They're not the greatest team in the world. These aren't the world-beating Chelsea, even though they are still in the Champions League right now, and I get that. And honestly, that actually might help our case, given that they have played more games. Whatever the case, it's not going to be an easy game, but we're not an easy out all the time either anymore. This isn't the Everton that it was a couple of months ago. So we have to just stand up and be counted, plain and simple. Get
the ball into the box and not be too scared to play when we do get it. The thing with Chelsea is I don't think they play well against teams that don't give them space. If you play quite a low block or quite a tight block between them and press, not saying a low block necessarily, maybe a mid block with a press, where we can stop them playing the ball in behind because they can't do it because they're being pressed. That could be a way to get a result against them. But we've shown we don't have 2 good halves. We don't have 2 high energy halves. We tend to have one half where we're full of energy, full of beans, and we have to score in that sort of 35 because I think we tire and then it becomes extremely difficult to get a result. So I think if we can get the result in our period when we will be on top in this game and hold off, stop them getting that a lot of space in front of us and behind and kind of push them out to where they can't hurt us, I think we've got a very good chance. And as Southampton showed, it's a winnable game.
When we played against when we played against Leeds and when we played against Notts Forest, we came in and it was a scrap. It was almost like a boxing match. We proper went into them and we gave them a game. I want us to have the same fight and the same passion. What we should have done for Liverpool was have that same aggression, passion, determination. But instead, we let them come at us. We had nothing in the tank at all, and we may as well just not have turned up. We had nothing going forward. I want us to see Everton play with the passion and the fight that we need and give them a good game. Take a shot, have a go, have a crack at it. Why not? You could win a corner. The keeper could push the ball back into a dangerous area. You never know what's going to happen. If we just sit back and let them come at us, I guarantee you we're going to lose because we will have nothing going forward. Let's go to them and not let them come and attack us instead.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. We do play with the intensity and the profile. Chris, we've played top of the league teams, Arsenal, the Liverpool of old, I suppose. It's not quite the same, but Derby, I still class as an advantage to them every time anyway. We've also played a relegation rival away from home. This is something we haven't seen in the Dyche yet, a mid-table team, a big name mid-table team, but it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches this game.
Right, and I think
he or not.
Sure. Well, he touched on that again today. He was asked multiple times about the mentality of the squad, and I think that's kind of where I was kind of alluding to that earlier. But I think that he likes his current players. He knows there's talent in the squad, and so it's really going to be a test of character. I'm interested to see what kind of substitutes he makes, given the game situation and all that. I hate to look forward to that and what may or what may not happen. But like I said, what happens if the result's in reach? What happens if it's 1-0? We're 1-0 down on 75 minutes. Are we going to actually chase it? Are we going to try and, at this point, you have an international break coming up. You're going to have a couple of weeks rest. I mean, it's going to be an interesting.
You don't want to go into an international break on a loss, Chris.
Well, no, of course not. I mean, you don't want to lose at any point. Don't get me wrong. But what I mean is, are we actually going to be chasing the win if the case presents itself where the other result is available as well? It's just going, given how the table is. It's an interesting scenario.
I think if we're drawing in the 75th minute, we sit back and we defend for our lives. If we are 1-0 down or 2-0 down or anything, we go hell for leather and we push forward and try and get any sort of result. Because too many times we have been losing in a game, and what do? We just pass it around the back, and it's almost as if we're time wasting or trying to see the game out. Yeah. It is the worst football ever. It's jarring to watch. So
we're not like
if we are losing, we go forward and we attack and we push and we give everything.
The first goal is massive. We're not like the old Lampard Everton. There's a purpose and a way of getting things out of this game, I think, and I'm intrigued to see how we do. In answer to the question, it makes absolutely no sense to say this, but I'd probably be looking at how the other results at 3:00 did. And if we need a win, we have to go for a win in those 15 minutes. And if maybe they lost, I'd probably be tempted to.
The only issue with that being, given that there's 9 teams in the relegation scrap, you're going to have teams picking up points every week, and conversely, you're going to have teams dropping points every week. So it's almost like you're gonna drive yourself nuts trying to figure out who you want to win, who you don't want to win. So it really just comes down to, he had the most simple answer possible. I'm not looking at anything else. I'm just looking at us, and I know that all sounds great on paper, but it really is true. We have to score goals. We have to win games. That's it. Full stop.
Chris, that's fantastic, and I can't say anything more than that. Unfortunately, that's brilliant. On that note, then, as Chris summarised it, we have to score goals. We've got to look at ourselves. John, thanks for joining as well. Chris, thanks for coming on this show. We'll be back on Saturday for the pre-match chat with the cast still to be announced, but I do believe Amy will be returning for the Saturday pre-match show. And I will be there on the post-match reaction. I will check. It could be Mabsy, it could be Yandelf, it could be Stevie, it could be Basil.
I will try and join once we've won the game, and I'll be buzzing.
Could be John from Stamford Bridge with his top over his head.
The full squad.
We'll do a job on them. But I don't know who it's going to be. But do tune in either way. It could be Chris. You never know. But do tune in. We want to give opportunities to everyone on here. So I'm not quite sure who's signed up for that yet. But regardless, I'm looking forward to catching up again with you guys, Chris and John. Could you give us your final prediction, please?
The gut says 1-0, but I'm scared to predict an away clean sheet. But I almost said that last week, and it would have proven right. So I'll stick with 1-0, and we can hopefully nick one late.
Oh, I hate these questions. I'm going to say that it's going to be a 1-1 draw, and I think we... Sorry.
I thought, should I go first? John's going to copy me with a 1-1 draw.
Well, look who's copied me. But I think we're actually going to score first.
Very nice. And I'm also going to go with a 1-1 draw. I'm going to go with a goal from a set piece. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a knockdown from a corner, and it's going to be bundled home by Michael Keane.
No, it's Onana. It's your buddy Amadou Onana.
Bang.
Onana. And I'm also going to go for something bold here. Chelsea players going to get sent off in the second half for 2 yellow cards. And Chelsea will get will have equalised by then though. So Everton to score from a set piece, Chelsea to equalise from a stupid error in transition. But then they get a man sent off, and we huff and puff, but we end up taking the draw. But it feels like a loss because Everton aren't allowed nice things. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Shout out to everyone in the comments: Peter Ball, David, Andy Mabs, Mark Burton, Mr. Blue Skies, the Blues, Mark, Kevin, and all of our regular friends. Nikki, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And I know there'll be several hundred people watching this back. I hope you enjoy the match preview and will tune in for the next shows. Of course, or as always, hit the like button right now and subscribe. And we're nearly close to 2,000 subscribers. So let's get that over the line. That would be very nice. Chris, would you like to do a little microphone thing?
Well, we pretty much covered it all, but as always, the only way we're going to grow is if you help us. So please tell your friends, tell your family, like, subscribe, enjoy, share, all that good stuff. And as always, up the Toffees.
Up the Toffees. Thanks. See you soon.